Okay, first things first. Here are the attendance passwords for today. Okay, so if you are taking this class in C, this third character here is a lowercase o. Okay, so it'll probably be a couple of minutes before the system will allow you to take attendance. So please take attendance when the system allows you to do so. In the meantime, probably going to write a couple of things on the board. Okay. Uh, are you guys able to take attendance? Okay, good. Okay. Let me stop this thing. Okay. Okay. So yes, before I start, I have posted the writing assignment 2 questions on Moodle. Please take the next few days to prepare your answers to those. And then if you haven't already done so, and then we'll come to class on Tuesday. Yeah, come to class either in person or virtually on Tuesday, and you will complete the assignment in class using using the answers that you have with the answers that you have prepared. Okay. And then on Thursday, well, Thursday is a little bit nebulous at this point. We could go on to talk about Plato. We could read more Republic. Basically, continuing from where we left off. The last time we looked at the Republic, or we can do more Aristotle. Um, Actually, I think it'll be more. I think we don't have to decide on it right this very moment. Perhaps at the end of class today, I will take a poll to see what you guys think. I'll give you a few options at the end of class today. But in the meantime, let's go with Aristotle. Okay. So Aristotle. Well, right. So to kind of briefly recap of what I said at the beginning of the semester. Aristotle was the student of Plato, who in turn was the student of Socrates. So they were. I'm not going to say they were the first philosophers in Western philosophy, because they are also the philosophers who came before Socrates, who are known as the pre-Socratics. But perhaps it is safe to say that they are the ones who, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle are the first philosophers to come up with a systematic philosophy that addresses most of the questions that we nowadays think of as philosophy. Questions concerning what is the right way to live, questions concerning happiness and virtue. So for that reason, I think they are important because they are the first philosophers to come up with something like that. And actually, okay, here's a fun fact. Here's a fun fact about philosophy. Uh, there is no space to write this, so I'll have to maybe try to squeeze it in here. Um, somebody has observed that Socrates um, Socrates and Jesus uh, and Buddha and Confucius. Anyway, somebody has observed that these 4 philosophers they emerged in the world. They appeared in the world within a 500-year period. They both lived and died within 500 years of each other. Um, and it's really interesting considering that they lived very far away from each other and probably couldn't have influenced each other. I mean, Socrates, lived around 300 or 400 BCE. Jesus, well, lived from zero AD, 0 CE, and Buddha. Most people believe that Buddha was born around 500 BCE or thereabouts. And Confucius, I think, was born probably around between 200 and 300 BCE. So the 4 of them kind of emerged more or less spontaneously, within 500 years of each other. And the Korea first actually refers to the period, he refers to this 500-year period as the axial period. Axial comes from the Greek word axios, which means value. So this is a period, this 500-year period in human history is, very important because it is within this period that there was a great explosion of wisdom traditions, a great explosion of value traditions. Again, I can only observe that this happened. I can't really tell you why it happened or anything like that. That part is beyond my pay grade. But it's an interesting fact to know anyway. So anyway, so coming back to Aristotle, Aristotle comes from that same tradition as Socrates, that wisdom tradition, if you will. He's the student of Socrates. Now, I hopefully you did read some Nicomachean Ethics, the readings that is assigned for this week over the last few days. You might find that the Nicomachean Ethics is quite a bit harder to read in many places than the Republic. And the main reason is because the Nicomachean Ethics, they are either just notes that Aristotle took during his travels, or they were notes that he took, which he then converted, developed into a lecture. So in any case, but what that means is that these are not they are not polished. He didn't write them when he was writing them. He wasn't intending to publish them. So he wasn't intending to present them to an audience. Whereas with Plato, you see that from reading the Republic, you see that the Republic is a very well organized dialogue between different characters. One of them is Glaucon, who actually happens to be Plato's brother. So the Republic is written as as a dialogue, almost as a play, to be read by an audience. The same cannot be said of the Nicomachean Ethics. So a lot of it, is, as I said, are his own kind of thoughts that he's kind of thinking through as he's writing these notes. You probably noticed that there is a bit of repetition and digression as well, especially in book one, right? He writes something and then he says, "Oops, that was a digression. Well, let's come back to this thing. Let's come back to the topic." So it is a lot of it is he's thinking a lot, which is well, I mean, in a way, it's actually kind of beautiful because you get to see, you get to see not the finished, polished product of a philosopher, but you get to see him, in action, so to speak. And I believe that the reason why it's called the Nicomachean Ethics is because this set of notes or lectures or whatever was written. I believe it was written to be meant as eventually as a gift to his son, Nicomachus. I don't know if if he succeeded in presenting it as a gift to his son. But I think that was the intention. So. So, Aristotle at the beginning of the Nicomachean Ethics, I mean, in the book one, he kind of gets him, even though he kind of meanders a little bit, he pretty much gets straight to the point of what he's trying to do. And what he's trying to do is to basically ponder the question of what makes a good life and how to live a good life. There is there is some mention at the beginning of the ethics about political science. And I think maybe this is worth talking about as well. So politics, politics derives from the Greek word polis, which means city. Okay, so in Aristotle's time, it was generally accepted that the art of politics or the craft of politics is if you are involved with the craft of politics, you are basically involved in the business of running a city well or trying to run a city well. And if you are involved in the business of trying to run a city well, then you have to be involved with coming up with laws and rules that will allow its citizens to live well and flourish within that city. So politics in the old days, in Aristotle's time, was very much is very much connected with ethics, because politics is concerned with running a city well, but a city is made up of people. So in order to if you are a politician, you will have to be concerned with the with the ethical health of your citizens who make up the city. And so you are concerned with making sure that your citizens are able to live by rules that will allow them to live happy and flourishing lives. So and the Greek word for happy and flourishing is eudaimonia. Oh, actually, I wrote it here as well. So eudaimonia is to again, sometimes it's useful to break words down into their components. You basically means something like good or well, and daimon. Daimon actually means something like spirit. Actually, the modern word demon comes from the word daimon. So okay, don't worry about this. Okay. Anyway, so to live well is to quite literally to live with to live in such a way as to be accompanied by good spirits. Um, you don't have to take this. I don't think we need to take that in any kind of supernatural way. But what Aristotle means is that you live in such a way that one can look at your life and say that you are living in a way that the gods would approve of. And perhaps the idea is that the gods would approve of somebody, will be more likely to approve of somebody if that person is living in a way that suggests that he is living his life with skill and excellence, rather than with no skill and no excellence. Um, okay, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Um, and that actually brings us excellence, right? Living your life with excellence. So, the Greeks, in the ancient Greeks, including Aristotle, believe that they believe that in order to do anything, well, if you're doing anything, you can either do it well or you can do it badly. If you are doing it well, then you are doing it with excellence, and you are doing it with heritage. Okay. Um, so the one example that Aristotle gives is if you are somebody who plays a harp, if you're a harpist, you could play the harp well, or you could play it badly. If you play the harp well, then you are playing it with arete or excellence. Similarly, same goes for being a carpenter or shoemaker. You can be a good carpenter or really bad one. So by that same logic, right? By that same logic, if it is possible to do a particular trade well or badly, then the same thing should be true of human life as a whole. If it's possible for you to be a shoemaker well or poorly, it must also be possible for you to live a human life well or live badly. So to live a human life well is to live with excellence or live with everything. Um, in this particular book, the word arete is translated as virtue. So, you know, I know this is a lot of information to be throwing at you at one time, but I just want you to, I just want you to understand that virtue is not meant to be any kind of a preachy, annoying thing that we think it is nowadays. Originally, virtue meant arete. It meant excellence. So if you live your life virtuously, then you are living your life, in the most skillful manner, in the most excellent manner. And it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if you are a shoemaker or any particular trade, you want to be, you want to excel in that particular trade. You want to be the best at that thing that you do. So if that is true of a particular trade, why shouldn't it be true of life, right? If you are living your human life, of course you want to excel and be the best at living your human life, and that would involve arete or excellence or virtue. Okay, so as I said, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. Uh, in book one of Nicomachean Ethics, you will find two arguments. the completeness and sufficiency argument and the function argument. So in these two arguments, he's basically trying to show two things. First, he's using the first argument to tell us why happiness is the thing that we should all be aiming for, or eudaimonia. In the function argument, he's trying to show us, why it is that you should be virtuous if you are trying to become, if your goal is to become happy. So, Frank.
So does virtue have a constant definition that applies to every individual, or is it just like subjective to an individual what virtue is?
Good question. Okay, so when you ask whether it is, are you asking whether it's like there's a common way to become virtuous for every individual, or is it somehow relative to each individual?
So what I'm asking is, you give the example how like every shoemaker wants to be a great shoemaker, and then you say every person logically would like to live a virtuous life. But does that mean like a virtue has a constant definition that applies to every individual, or is it subjective to every individual? Because to live a virtuous life.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. He spends most of, okay, this is jumping ahead a bit, but it's okay. I think he spends a big part of book two talking about this. So book one is talking about, why you need to be virtuous, and why you need to be happy, why happiness is the thing you should be going for. And then book two, it kind of gets around to talking about what is virtue. Okay, so is there a common definition of virtue for everybody? Okay, here's the thing, right? The answer is yes. I mean, the very short answer. Very short answer is yes. And the common definition of virtue for everybody is that in order to be virtuous, you need to, you need well, you need to live well. But how to live well? In order to live well, you need to live in such a way that you have you are able to appropriately master your emotions in any particular situation. Maybe the best thing to do here is to just jump forward. Let's see. Okay, let's look at page 266. Okay, so the question is, is there like a common universal definition of virtue? The short answer is yes, but the long answer is a little bit more complicated. So let's see. Let's start with the bottom of the right hand column on 266. So he says, while this is the character of our general account. Okay, so by general account, he means the general account of virtue. So while this is the character of our general account of virtue, the account of particular cases is still more inexact. For this fall under no craft or profession, the agents themselves must consider in each case what the opportune action is, as doctors and navigators do. The account we offer then in our present inquiry is of this inexact sort. Still, we must try to offer help. So, Aristotle is he's kind of a very sensitive writer. He says, look, I mean, everybody's life is different. So I cannot possibly tell you exactly what to do, right? I can't give you an exact account of what to do in every single situation in life that might come up. However, I can give you some help, and here's the help. So he goes on. First, we should observe that these sorts of states, in other words, virtuous state, naturally tend to be ruined by excess and deficiency. We see this happen with strength and health, for we must use evident cases such as these as witnesses to things that are not evident. For both excessive and deficient exercise ruin bodily health, bodily strength, and similarly, too much or too little eating or drinking ruins health, whereas the proportionate amount produces, increases, and preserves it. Okay, you must be thinking right now, what has this got to do with virtue? It's coming. Then the same is true then of temperance, bravery, and the other virtues. For instance, someone avoids and is afraid of everything, standing firm against nothing, he becomes cowardly. If he is afraid of nothing at all and goes to face everything, he becomes rash. Similarly, if he gratifies himself with every pleasure and abstains from none, he becomes intemperate. And if he avoids them all, as Boers do, he becomes some sort of insensible person. Uh, Temperance and bravery then are ruined by excess and deficiency, but preserved by the means, by the mean. Okay, and then actually, okay. So he gives us a sort of general account here, right? The idea here is that if you want to be virtuous, you got to you have to kind of work with your emotions. You have to kind of work with your emotions so that you can like in the case of courage, in order to be brave, you must. You must not give in fully to your fear, because if you do that, then then you become cowardly. But you can't just always charge forward mindlessly either, because if you do that, then you become rash. So the way to be courageous is to, maybe he's saying that it's okay to feel fear, but don't give in fully to it, but also don't fully ignore it either. Uh, Take the mean, right? The so-called mean, the middle ground. The middle ground is to be aware of what you're facing, but move forward anyway. Um, so actually, let's just do one more paragraph. So the next paragraph is quite useful as well. But these actions are not only the sources and causes both of the emergence and growth of virtues and of their ruin. The activities of the virtues, once we have acquired them, also consist in these same actions. For this is also true of more evident cases. Strength, for instance, arises from eating a lot and from withstanding much hard labor, and it is the strong person who is most capable of these very actions. It is the same with the virtues, for abstaining from pleasures makes us become more temperate, and once we have become temperate, we are most capable of abstaining from pleasures. It is similar with bravery. Habituation in disdain for frightening situations and in standing firm against them makes us become brave. And once we have become brave, we shall be most capable of standing firm. So the idea is the you know he famously said that you become brave by continually doing brave actions. Now you become temperate by continually doing temperate actions. So the idea is that you can't just become brave overnight. In order to become a brave person, you have to you kind of have to continually practice, practice being in those situations which would require you to be brave. And by practice, I don't know what exactly he means by practice. Obviously you can't go to war every single day, but maybe what he means is that maybe you can go to a simulation or practice, or practice fighting with your friends or whatever. So the idea is that if you keep practicing exposing yourself to these situations, and if you keep practicing to if you keep practicing displaying the right amount of fear in that situation, through this process of habituation, right, you will become brave. So you become brave by practicing, by continually doing brave actions. Same goes for other things like temperance, which is moderation basically. If you want to practice becoming a moderate person or temperate person, you should maybe put yourself in situations where you could be tempted to do all kinds of things. And then maybe you practice not eating too much, right, when you are at a dinner party or something. And then if you practice enough, it will become easier and easier for you to do the right thing, to do the temperate thing. So you become temperate by practicing temperance. You become brave by practicing, bravery. So yes, I guess there is kind of a common account of there is a common account of bravery, I mean, of the virtues, and it involves something like a mean, all right, like a mean between extremes of emotion. I think this is actually I should write this. We should write this down.
Want someone to take a picture of you first?
Yes, good point. Mhm. Thanks. Okay, so the idea here is, the general principle here is that virtue. To be a virtue or to be an excellent human means it means to attain the mean between extremes of emotion. So, and the mean. So the mean is, he doesn't. I mean, the courage example is kind of a simplified example. It doesn't just mean it doesn't just involve having the middle amount of fear, but it also involves it also involves displaying emotions in just the right amount at the right time and in the right situation. So for your another, so we are dealing with the emotions here, right? With bravery, we are talking about fear. Um, with bravery, the relevant emotion here is fear. So we are looking at the right amount of fear. Uh, and actually, if you think about it, it's not really just about having the right amount of fear, but you also have to have fear, in the right situation, um, and directed towards the right things and the people and right people. What do I mean by that? So, for example, um, well, I mean, if you are, so suppose you're on a battlefield, right? You, if you direct the fear towards, if your fear is directed or displayed in front of your, comrades, displaying fear in front of your comrades might actually cause them to it might cause your comrades to become demoralized. They might lose, their morale or fighting spirit or whatever. Uh, so so the fear has to be, it has to be directed. It cannot be directed towards your comrades. Maybe it would be appropriate to have some fear when the enemy is charging at you. Then you'll be motivated enough to take to take the necessary precautions to protect yourself. Um, um, and so the idea is that you must display the fear towards the right people and the right things and in the right situation. Um, another emotion is anger. Uh, Anger is not so much it's not so much concerned with bravery, but perhaps with something like justice, anger is an appropriate emotion. So if you think of justice in terms of upholding the laws of your community, or maybe standing up for people who need to be stood up for, there is a place for anger, because if you are angry at the right people, if you're angry at a bully who's bullying the people that you are standing up for, then that will allow you to carry out justice effectively. But if you're angry at the wrong people at the wrong times, then then you will end up doing something that is not virtuous, that is counterproductive. So a lot of this, a lot of what is involved in being virtuous. Again, Aristotle would say there is no, I can't tell you exactly how much anger to feel in any situation. I cannot tell you exactly how much fear to feel in any situation, but I can tell you that in order to be a virtuous person, in order to be an excellent person, you do have to manage your emotions. You do have to, you do have to display the appropriate amount of emotion in a situation. And what that appropriate amount is something that comes with experience. He doesn't actually say this, but it might also be helpful. Uh, it might also be helpful to to model yourself after people who are widely regarded to be virtuous. So if you are maybe if you are starting out as a student of virtue and you are trying to become great, it it would be helpful maybe to look up to to look up to a famous soldier or general or whatever and use him as your role model and maybe study his life, study what he has done in this or that situation, and use him as a as a role model to aspire towards, and basically ask yourself something like, what would this particular person do in this particular situation, and then and then you kind of act accordingly. Yeah. So so that's basically what's going. That's basically a big part of what's going on. Well, here's something. Here's something that's worth commenting on. I think you can already see from this that there is a significant difference between Aristotle and Kant here, right? Because when Kant talks about doing the right thing, acting from duty, uh, he always talks about acting purely from duty. He always says that you shouldn't your motives should only be purely from duty. It should never be mixed with any inclinations or desires or emotions. Um, um, if it is mixed with, according to Kant, right, if your motives are mixed with desires or inclinations or emotions, then your motive is not pure, and therefore your motive is not morally praiseworthy. But Aristotle is different, right? Aristotle is saying, look, yes, we are rational beings. Yes, we are rational animals, but we are also emotional beings. So rather than try to shut your emotions off altogether in your actions, what you need to do, what you need to do is to use and manage your emotions effectively. And if you can do that, then you become a virtuous or an excellent person.
So underneath like the broad aspect of it, so could you just kind of throw it together as saying a virtuous person can be someone who has mastered their emotions
I suppose you could say that.
underneath Aristotle's terms.
Yeah. Um, Actually, yeah, I'm usually wary of slogans, but this actually is a useful slogan. Well, okay. Something else might be useful. So in the later part of so remember that Aristotle was a student of Plato, right? In the Plato's Republic, not the part that we read, but later on in the Republic, Plato talks about the soul, and according to Plato, the soul is made up of three parts. Okay, I don't, I know you don't think I'm answering your question, but I'm getting there. Uh, so the soul is made up of three parts, according to Plato. There is this thing called, there's this thing called reason. Um, there is a part of your soul that has reason, and then there is the part of your soul that is the spirited part of your soul, and that is the part that has emotions. And then there is the part of your soul that has appetites. Okay, Actually, this is, I suspect that this is probably quite simple to understand. Well, if you want to actually, if you want to be really nitpicky here, there is actually a fourth part of the soul that Plato doesn't talk about, and that is the part of your soul that is involved with growth and nutrition. So the Greeks, most of us would think of growth and nutrition as just being a bodily function. Uh, but you see, the Greeks don't divide mind and body in such a strict way as as we do. So for them, right? For them, they kind of think that in order for your body to grow and absorb nutrition, there's got to be some kind of life energy or life force that is doing the work of all that. And the life energy and the life force is part of your soul as well. So if you want to be strict about it, if you want to be nitpicky, there's actually four parts, not three. But most of the time, people who study Aristotle and Plato, they don't talk much about this, so let's not worry about it. Okay. So the idea is this. According to Plato, the if you are if you are a virtuous person, reason should be in charge in your soul, and when reason is in charge, the emotions and the appetites would follow they will follow the directive, they will follow the direction of reason. The image that Plato gives us is this. Suppose there is a carriage. Yeah, suppose there is a carriage that is driven by two horses, and the two horses would be spirit and appetites. And reason would be like the carriage, the coachman. So if the coachman is driving the carriage properly, he should be able to control, he should be able to control these two horses, the spirit, the emotions, and the appetites. If the coachman is not driving the carriage properly, then the horses will run all over the place, and the carriage will probably go into a ditch or something. Uh, so and Aristotle is a student of Plato, and so he pretty much accepts this idea of what's going on in the soul. So coming back to virtue, right? We are talking about this. The idea is that if you are going to be a virtuous person, you do have to master your emotions, and actually not just your emotions. You also have to master your appetites. Your appetites would be all the cravings. I mean, your basic appetites that you have for food and drink and sex and all those things. If you have mastery over your own person, and you should have mastery both over your emotions and your appetites. And if you, yeah, okay. Let me pause here for a second. So, any thoughts, questions, comments? Okay. If no, then, oh wait, somebody has something to say on Zoom. Does anyone have the attendance password? Does anyone include me? I guess yes. Okay, Carson. Uh, I don't know when you sent this message, but I'm going to just flash the thing to you. I mean, flash the attendance password to you real quick. Okay, I'll just leave it as it is. Right, right.
I like the analogy that you use of like the two horses and chariot. One thing that really struck out to me is I was doing research on this a couple months ago. I was doing research on emotions, and it said if humans cannot control their emotions, then those emotions will control the human, leading to chaos. And while I do agree with that, and I kind of like thought about like kind of like a semi truck. You know how there's head on a semi truck and then there's a trailer on the back. The head is gonna be your mind and brain to be able to control the emotions, and then in the emotions is gonna be trailer back. But if the trailer goes in front of the head, then it's only gonna lead to chaos. Would that be true?
If the trailer, sorry, let's say the last thing again. I kind of,
So the head is the mind and the brain and the soul. Okay, like the head of the semi truck, and the trailer is the emotions that's carried behind it. But if the trailer gets in front of the head, the mind, body, and soul, that means those emotions are controlling what you think rather than you controlling what the emotions are. Would that particularly lead to chaos within itself?
I think it would, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think as well.
Yeah, I think it would. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to take this too literally because, I'm thinking that if the trailer is in front of the cat, the whole thing probably wouldn't even move. Well, I mean, yeah, and Plato would add, you will probably add to what you just said by saying, yeah, actually, there's actually at least two trailers, right? One of them is the emotions, and the other one is the appetites. Um, I'm sorry to, I don't mean to be, a wet blanket, but I feel that the horse carriage analogy is slightly better because the trailer, right? The trailer is basically just dead weight, whereas the horse actually has a life of its own, right? So if the coachman doesn't control the horses will run wild, just like your emotions, right? Your emotions will run all over the place unless you control them. Same goes for appetites. Right. If you don't control them, they will run wild. So far so good.
So, and reason is the one controlling the spirit and the appetites, correct?
Yeah, that's the theory. That's the
So,
theory anyway.
okay, so within that theory, would that mean that reason needs to have absolute knowledge of spirit and appetites in order to have like absolute control over them?
Um, well, I don't know. I mean, it feels like it feels that answer is yes. I mean, you do need to know what your appetites and emotions are up to in order to be able to control them. I think the thing about there is a difference. So for both Aristotle and Plato, there is a difference between the emotions and the appetites, and the difference is that the emotions actually the emotions actually are able to listen to reason. Um, right? So when somebody is really angry, you can calm him down. You can calm him down by getting him to, by talking to him and trying to persuade him to not be angry. The appetites are kind of different. I I don't know if you agree with this, but both Plato and Aristotle think that the appetites are harder to control because they don't the appetites are kind of just this raw animal drive. They don't really the appetites don't really listen to reason. Um, so you almost have to. So when you are trying to control the appetites, you have to adopt a different strategy. I think from when you're trying to control your emotions, you can try to talk yourself out of having certain emotions, but I think when you are trying to control your appetites, you almost need to use willpower or something to control your appetites by brute force because you can uh, because it is harder to talk yourself out of appetites. Actually, I'm actually thinking a lot right now. Is that actually really true? Is that actually really true? That you can talk yourself out of certain appetites. Mm, yeah, man.
I would say that you can convince yourself, you can kind of talk yourself down from how much you want that appetite, like how much power that appetite has over you. But I still like that you can't like just get rid of an appetite without surgery or something, because like no matter what, like if you're dieting, you can talk yourself down like, no, I'm not gonna eat, no, I'm not gonna eat, but you're still gonna want to eat.
Yeah.
Like the appetite doesn't go away. You can just choose not to listen to it.
Yeah. Or maybe what most people would do is they do some kind, maybe, I don't know, maybe they do some kind of a delayed gratification kind of thing. Like, you train yourself to, in certain societies, right, it is appropriate for the older members of the family to eat first at dinner. So if you are a child, you would probably train yourself to delay your gratification of the food until your elders have eaten, something like that. Um, I don't know how that will work for dieting though. I mean, maybe you find some other way of satisfying the appetite,
Yeah, your analogy is better.
maybe. Okay.
Um, I feel as if appetite is controllable because it is a choice. Because if there's reasoning behind it, and if you can reason with emotions, I believe you can also reason with yourself to control those appetites. For example, like let's just go on and say that you have like an appetite for eating something, like your addiction is to food, but it isn't. But it is a choice whether you keep continuing the addiction or if you quit it. And of course, it is going to be hard, but it's not impossible because there's still a morality of choice behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does say somewhere that the difference between a virtuous person and an unvirtuous person is that the virtuous person has trained himself to probably maybe ideally from childhood. He has ideally trained himself from a young age to do the right things, so that for him, for the virtuous person, it is much easier for the virtuous person to control his appetites and emotions than for the non-virtuous person to do so. Um, and he does even say somewhere that actually, let me see if I can find it. He's basically saying that you know uh, the idea is that if you can train yourself to not just to not just be successful in controlling your emotions and appetites, but to do it with ease and to find pleasure in doing it, then that is when you know that you have become virtuous. Um, so basically, there are at least three kinds of people, right? There are the people who totally are unable to control themselves. Mm, no, actually, it's more than three times. Okay, we have to work through this. Got to work through this slowly. Okay, so the virtuous person. I forgot to take a picture. Okay. First, let's start with the virtuous person. So the virtuous person is able to control. Is able to controls his or her appetites and emotions. And with ease and pleasure. Now remember, when he says that you become virtuous by continually doing, virtuous things, and that's what happens, right? If you continually do virtuous things, then you will get to a point where you can control your appetites and emotions with ease and pleasure. Uh, but and then there's the second kind of person. Uh, the second kind of person is well, I mean, yeah, well, there is an obvious second kind of person who is the non-virtuous person. Um, Let me call this, the opposite of virtue is vice, right? So this is we shall call him we can call him the vicious person. So the vicious person you know, is unable, right? Is unable to control his appetites and emotions. Okay, but then I think there is a third kind of person, and the third kind of person is somebody who kind of falls in between the virtuous and the vicious person, and this is somebody who most of the time he's able to control his emotions and appetites, but he's only just barely able to do it. Like, it takes him a lot of willpower to do the right thing. He has to work really, he has to struggle really hard whenever he tries to be brave or whenever he tries to not eat too much. Um, so this person is somebody who's able to control emotions and appetites. But with pain and difficulty, he takes no pleasure in doing in doing the virtuous action. Um, Aristotle has a name for this person. He calls this person the continent person. Continent in the sense that he just barely has control over his appetites and emotions. Uh, okay, so we have this person, the virtuous person, who is able to control his emotions with ease and pleasure. We have the vicious person who is unable to do it at all. And then we have the continent person who is able to do it, but just barely. Um, are there any more? Are there any more kinds of persons, or is it just these three? Matt?
I think there would be maybe someone who can control their, um, who can, like a confident person that can control it, but not immediately. Like someone who's slow at controlling it.
Yeah, and maybe he's slow at controlling it. And because he's slow at controlling it, he has some maybe lapses, right? He sometimes, at least some of the time, or maybe very often, he will succumb to temptation. And this is actually a very interesting, I mean, for our purposes, as a philosopher, this is a very interesting kind of person. So the vicious person is basically totally or mostly unable to control. Yeah, he's totally or mostly unable to control his appetites and emotions. And Aristotle would say that, this person is unable to do it because, probably because he's unfortunate in that he hasn't had the right kind of education or the right kind of training from a young age. But as Matt pointed out, there is actually a fourth kind of person. And this is the kind of person who he has gone through enough education. He has gone through enough education or the training to know what is the right thing to do. So he knows he needs to control his emotions. Yeah, he knows he needs to control his emotions and appetites. But but for some reason, right? For some reason, he is mostly unable to do so, or he often lapses, right? The word for, so Aristotle would call this the incontinent person. You know, I don't. I mean, obviously, we don't mean incontinent as being as having. We don't mean like having poor bladder control or anything like that. We mean incontinent as, you know, if you think about, if you think about incontinent as just not just having poor control of your bladder, but having poor control of, your soul, then incontinent means, having poor control of your soul. Uh, so the and this is an interesting case because, I mean, we know of such people, or we maybe sometimes we are such people, right? We know that we have. I mean, I have been in situations, hopefully now less than before, but I have been in situations where I know that, um, where I know that I probably shouldn't have said that thing that I said, that that caused somebody to get angry for no good reason, or I know that I probably shouldn't have allowed myself to drink too much. But even at that moment when somebody is offering me the drink, I'm already thinking to myself, no, I shouldn't do this, but I do it anyway. So yeah, I mean, we all either know or have experience of meeting people, or maybe even have personally experienced being in this state where we are incontinent, where you know what the right or the virtuous thing to do is, but you don't do it anyway. Uh, so a very interesting question to ask here would be why? Why does this happen? Um, I mean, if you think about it, right, this guy knows, the incontinent person knows what he needs to do, so does the virtuous person, and so does the continent person. But why? Why does this guy fail? Lazy.
Do you think it's probably because some people are more willing to face the consequences that come with that?
Uh, oh, maybe, right? Maybe I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I know I shouldn't drink, but I'll drink anyway, and I'll face the consequences of being hungover or whatever. Um, could be. Uh, There could be, but it could. I don't know if that explains everything because there are also people who, they also think about people who are unfaithful to their spouses or partners or whatever. And again, same thing is going on. At the moment that they are cheating on their spouses or partner, they're thinking, they're knowing, I know I shouldn't do that. Am I willing to face the consequences of if my spouse finds out? Probably not. It's going to be very unpleasant, but then they do it anyway. Like
I think it's like just how far along they are, because I feel like all babies are vicious people.
all babies are what?
Are the second kind of person, the vicious, because they're unable to control their emotions or their appetites.
Yes.
Maybe, And then, but as you grow up, you become incompetent. Like you should, like little kids know they shouldn't lie. They know they should share, but they don't always. And but they are trying to be better. And they do feel bad about it, but then they are trying. And then they can become the continent person, which is like they know they're doing the right thing because they know they should, but they're not happy about it. And then eventually, hopefully, they can grow up to be a virtuous person who does the right thing because they know it's the right thing and they take joy in doing that.
Yes. So if the Aristotelian model of moral virtue, ethical development goes smoothly well, then everybody should grow up to be virtuous people, right? It seems that some people are stuck at, yeah, they are either stuck at being vicious, no, well, maybe vicious, but not so much. Yeah, it seems that some people are stuck at being incontinent, or maybe they get to be incontinent where they are able to resist the temptations like 99% of the time. Uh, yeah, so it seems that many people are stuck at either being incontinent or continent and never really virtuous. Mm.
Um, I can see where it's coming from with the exponential growth that people face from a young age to become a virtual person. I can also see like why a lot of people don't become a virtuous person. I guess the foundation that really relies on all of this is kind of like choice, because everyone is faced with the choice of decisions that they make. For example, let's just say the example that you used of a spouse cheating another spouse, that's a choice that they made. But that also relies on what foundation that they have set upon as a virtue, as Aristotle was talking about. If there's no foundation of virtue to back up what their actions are doing, then there's really no choice on morality, what they believe to be.
So by foundation of virtue, you mean something like and having been educated and trained in virtue from a young age or something like that?
Trained and yet also like the foundation as well. Like it's mostly what people believe. For example, many people with a religious background have virtues that they believe is what taught like religiously. But on top of it, like if there like really no foundation to back what choices that they make on morality, then it'll just be back into chaos.
Like if you had no concept of property, then you wouldn't, then stealing would be wrong because there was no property.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that what you're trying to say?
I guess what I'm trying to really go back into is like most of this is a choice, and people make a choice on what actions that they're going to want to commit. Like even though they do commit these actions, like they choose not to be virtuous, even though if they know the consequences behind it. Because like logically, anyone knows that cheating on their spouse is wrong, but self-evidently, you wouldn't want that done onto you because it will only cause chaos and harm to yourself. That's just like the self-evident fact behind it. But they choose to break that virtuous act be, because just like the choice of not wanting to progress,
because of not wanting to progress.
not wanting progress, and also they don't have the foundation of the morality.
Hmm.
So you're with the not wanting to progress, do you think it's more so that or more so people generally are more selfish and so they don't really consider others when they do like an act of cheating on a spouse instead of considering their spouse, they're considering themselves and their own pleasures.
I mean, humans naturally are self-interested creatures, and we see that everywhere. Like, people do things for the self-interest of themselves, and I do agree with that. But there's also a choice behind every action some people want to make. For example, we chose to come to this class, which does have a morality choice behind it. Once we came to this class, it could either be good or bad. Okay, and it is a choice on whatever action that you want to make. If there's a choice behind it, there's a morality behind it as well. And if the person goes on and breaks a virtuous act to cheat on their spouse, then I believe that they chose to do that, and like they did break the virtues. Like it's a choice, inevitable behind it.
Suppose, okay, so suppose, let's try this example. So suppose I am, okay, so suppose I'm in a situation where I am in the middle of cheating on my partner, and I'm saying to myself, yes, I know that I got married, I took those vows, and I know that the marriage institution is supposed to mean something. I've also been taught by my parents, not to cheat on my partner. Uh, but I don't really much care about those things. I just, I mean, I'm not, I can probably do this, well and not get caught. If I do it just once or twice, I probably won't get caught. So if this is what I'm thinking, am I a, am I a vicious person or am I an incontinent person?
Well, you'd be an incontinent person because you like you stated like you know you shouldn't be doing that.
I shouldn't have said no. I shouldn't have used that word. Because I have a suspicion, right? And this is just a suspicion. I have a suspicion that many people would think that way. When they say that yes, I've been taught that way by my parents and elders, and I know that I took those vows and all that. I feel that Aristotle would look at these people, and he would say, do these people actually really know that they are not supposed to do this? Uh, because if you are in a state of mind where you don't actually even believe, where you don't actually even believe in the vows that you took, if you don't believe in what your parents taught you when growing up, can you really be said to know those things?
I guess that ultimately comes back to like what I was saying at first with the foundation of virtue. For example, if they don't have a foundation to back up what their virtuous acts are they really a virtuous person or are they really not a virtuous person? Like if they don't have the foundation of like not knowing what virtuous was, like Aristotle didn't define, just as bravery, courage, and everything else that he was talking about. If they don't have the moral foundation of virtuous acts to define like behind their actions, then I think they just end up falling back into inconsequent person. Like they know, like just logically, some of the actions that they're doing are wrong, but they still proceed to act upon it because of wanting to get away with it.
Yeah. So if I actually don't believe, right? If I don't believe in all the things that I've been brought up to believe in, then using your language, Aristotle would say that I don't actually really have a foundation of virtue. is just a fake foundation. It just looks like I have a foundation of virtue. What is more interesting, maybe, is that if you have somebody who actually really believes wholeheartedly in what their parents taught them about virtue, uh, and all that, and then at a crucial moment, they still they still cheat on their partner, and they do it and they do it while actually really believing in all those things that the parents teach them. And and you can imagine that in that moment there is that big conflict going on in their minds between what they wholeheartedly believe in and what they want to do in the moment. Um, I think this is an interesting case because in this case we are looking at somebody who has a moral foundation, uh, and who knows the right thing to do, right? Number four, but who still does what is not right anyway.
I find that interesting, and it just like made me realize something as well. Ever since I was little, my mom's always taught me you can take a horse to a water, but you can't make it drink it. So that's pretty much she's saying is like you can teach people things how to do it, but you can't make them do those things. Like no matter how many times that person is told that cheating is wrong and there are going to be consequences behind it, even if the consequences are self-evident, like such as harms, because you wouldn't want that done to yourself, they still have the moral choice of behind if they want to take whatever that they've learned and apply it to themselves. And if they don't apply it to themselves, it's still going to incontinent person because they do know the wrong actions behind it underneath the moral foundation of it, but they just don't apply it. Whereas with the vicious person, they have no knowledge of it. They just don't care. This person does care. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be thinking about it.
True. Matt.
I think that, like, yeah, there is the case that they don't want to apply it, but I think there is the case also that they are really trying to apply those morals that they've been taught and that they believe in to really stand on their foundation, as you put it, use that virtuous foundation, but they fail. Like, if you look at drug addicts, there's a lot of them when they're trying to get into recovery, they're trying to get out of their addiction. They know what they're doing is wrong. They're trying not to do it. They're trying to be better, but sometimes they fail and have a relapse, even though they know what they're doing is wrong and they honestly are trying to change and they are trying to apply what they've learned and know, but sometimes they don't.
Would that kind of pull us back to like the emotionality? Because like if your appetite for like if you're a drug addict, your appetite that's something you need, it would pull you one way or the other.
Yeah. Although the appetite, I mean, the drug addiction case is kind of a very special case because what happens is that in the case of drug addiction, it's not just that the appetite horse is pulling very strongly in one way. The appetite horse is now on steroids. Right? It's basically a chemical thing. So I actually don't know if Aristotle and Plato had to deal with this problem back in the day. I don't know. What?
Probably not. They don't have like hard drugs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they probably had some weird concoctions that they get from the Egyptians or whatever. But it's probably nothing like like meth or anything like that. Probably not. That would be something. Brecon?
Well, I was just kind of thought, and then I counteracted the thought, so I'm not sure, but I was gonna kind of bring up when you started talking about the drugs as well, like making choices and everything. Also, you're allowed to consider state of mind and everything, because yeah, you are in full control of your self, but I don't know, sometimes like I said, emotions can get in the front, if somebody like insults you, or, you have a choice like to back it off, but sometimes based on how, the things that have happened that day or anything, sometimes you just can't wake up. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you could say hypothetically, yeah, you still have a choice whether to let it back, but I feel like being almost a little more realistic, you just really can't. So some of these things, some things that you say you have choices on, you think you have a choice, but you really don't.
And is it because, and maybe you don't have a choice because if you are operating, if you are dealing with chemical dependency, you know, it's, yeah, again, it's like the horse is on steroids and no human coachman can possibly stop the horse, basically. So,
Is it, so what you're kind of saying, is it kind of like, I don't know, if someone says something to you and it's more triggering, like to your emotions, like, if somebody says something that's, like you've had to deal with personally, like, I don't know, an example.
let's say somebody says something that really pushes your buttons.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, go on.
And then your like emotion horse that takes off. Are you saying something like that? Like you can't control it when it's
Yeah.
triggering?
Yeah, 'cause I was kind of bringing in the brain of like, how you were brought up, because, when you were younger, you didn't have, like, you kind of relied on your parents or fingers trying to kind of tell you what was right and wrong, and then, some things can change like that, or it's not really right and wrong, or sorry, say, but like, so when something happens kind of later and it could, really trigger you, and it's kind of based on what you kind of experienced before, you didn't really have control in the past, then when something happens now that really triggers that, I mean, since it's in the past, you can't change the past. I'm not sure how that would.
Yeah. So right now we are talking about, we're talking about virtue, and so so all of these cases, even all of these cases are cases where you can basically blame or praise people for being virtuous or not, right? Even the vicious person, you can kind of blame him for not bothering to get not bothering to get education, but I wonder if we are when we are confronted with cases like the drug addiction case, I wonder if that may be outside of this whole thing, because you can't really blame or praise people for being subject to some kind of overwhelming physical force, right? Like if I were to put a gun in your hand and then somehow take control of your hand and make you pull the trigger using by sheer brute force, um, it would be wrong for anybody to blame you for shooting somebody, right? Because I'm controlling you. So similarly, right, when it comes to drug addiction, I mean, if you go by the medical model of drug addiction, it's almost like your brain. It's been taken over by the chemical addiction. Your brain is taken over by brute force. So in that way, I don't know if you can say blame somebody for being a vicious person for doing the things that he did while under the influence of drugs. I mean, maybe you can blame him for getting for being addicted to drugs in the first place. Perhaps you can blame him for that part, but I don't know if you can blame him for the things that he did after that. Okay, before I think it's almost, oops, it's time. Can I just, okay, I just want to ask you a question real quick, sorry. So for next Thursday, after the, okay, I need to take a picture of this, but okay. For next Thursday, after the writing assignment, I feel that there are three possible things we can do. We can either follow the plan in the syllabus and go back to reading Plato's Republic. Actually, it's quite interesting because we are going to read, well, the plan is to read Republic Book 4, and in here he's going to talk about the three parts of the soul that I mentioned before. So that's the first option. Second option is to kind of continue talking about everything that we're talking about. So in Nicomachean Ethics, Book 7, uh, Aristotle actually he spends a lot of time talking about incontinence, people who know what the right thing to do is, but still fail. Okay, and then there is a third option, which is in Book 8 of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle talks about friendship. And I think it's interesting to look at because I think he's one of the few philosophers who actually talk about friendship. Okay, so I can't decide which one is the best way to go. So 1, 2, or 3. So I'm going to take a vote here. Okay, so let's see. Take a moment. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's a moment. Okay, who votes for going for number 1? Actually, hold on. Before I go on any further, if you are taking the course from Zoom, can you use the chat function? Hopefully, you can see my whiteboard. Can you use the chat function to indicate your choice? 1, 2, or 3. Republic, incontinence, or friendship. Okay. So in the meantime, okay, who here votes for 1? Nobody. Okay. 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 2 votes for 4. 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 votes for 3. Okay, let's see what the people online have to say. Okay, 3, 3, 3, 3. Oh, there's a bunch of 3s. Okay, 3 then. Okay, so next Thursday, we are going to talking about Aristotle, about friendship. Hold on, don't leave just yet. Sorry. Aristotle talks about friendship in Book 8 of the Nicomacheanetics, and Book 8 is from pages. Hold on. Book 8 is from 328, 328, 328 to 338. So those 10 pages, 328 to 338. Okay, let's see what he has to say about friendship. Okay, thank you so much for your long attention.
Thank you.